think so much. So first of all,
Yeah.
thank you, all four of you. That was fantastic. Really enjoyed the talks and the insights, and looking forward to our discussions over the next half an hour, 40 minutes before we go to dinner. So firstly, does anyone have any burning questions before I go into my set of questions? Any particular ones? Yep, at the back. Do we have another mic by any chance? One coming to you.
Okay. Thank you for the presentations. I was a little bit triggered. I felt a little bit triggered by pre-last presentation about the was it not the Roblox, but
Is that Stephen's presentation?
maybe
Roblox was me, but
the one before.
before me was Metaverse. That's the first one.
Mine?
Yeah, I think maybe. Yeah. I was just want to clarify about. You said the motivations for people to game. You know, mentioned like self-expression. There were kind of 3 or 4. I don't know. To my mind, there was a little bit missing the one more important component: addiction. And that also, together with, let's say, kind of bold statement that somehow we have to update our education system that has no tools to teach things like socializing that. And I think there's a disruptive component of gaming, where the gaming sector can be kind of act like a predatory component for kind of society, like taking people out of loop, you know, from productive work into kind of addiction-led economy, which is kind of predatory in a way. So maybe it was a little bit lacking in my, but maybe you have some observations about that and backing up some of your claims, I would say. Thank you.
Yeah, I would completely agree with you. Currently, video games, their focus is to at any cost to draw your attention and to consume it like for 10 hours a day. But for example, when we are working with schools and bringing our game-based lessons to schools, we saw from the feedback that it's even enough for teachers see impact and change if students are using only once for an hour once a week. So like you don't need to game a lot. So talking about the metaverse, it's very important, to have these social responsibility and some management tools. So we are thinking about implementing that into our game. Like a lot of games right now, platforms have parental control. So we want to not only have that control part, but also parental engagement tools. So for example, imagine like a Minecraft, Roblox, or Fortnite platform. Part of it is for education, but children logs in and sees a new notification. Clean your room today, and you will get this new cool hat in a game. And that goal is put by parent. So yeah, it's very important to talk about those solutions and implement. So I totally agree. Thank you.
I like that a lot. Parental controls, not just from both a carrot and a stick perspective. We can restrict stuff, but we can also offer stuff as well for positive behavior. Interesting. I haven't actually thought or seen that being. Has it been implemented anywhere yet, or is it just an idea at this stage?
I have never saw that anywhere else.
It's not a bad idea. I'd get on it pretty quickly.
Yeah, we that's the direction we are going to. But first we need to actually have a game to implement because it's a layer on top.
Yeah.
So
yeah, very interesting. So I'll come back to the crowd. I'll just ask my initial question, which is more of a high-level one. We in the industry tend to suffer from being too close to the trees, so to speak. You know, not being able to see the wood for the trees. And sometimes we end up in a bubble. I'm going to go through each of you one by one. Maybe I'll start with you, Stephen, and then we'll go around. What do each of you think the public, i.e. people outside our industry, think of the metaverse? Like the term metaverse right now. And how do you think that has changed, if at all, over the last few years?
I guess I'll start then since I'm the first one, but I actually believe if you see someone in the street and you go ask them, hey, what do you think the metaverse is? I'm pretty sure you will get a different answer or a really confused look from most of them. Because there isn't like one true definition which everyone gathers around about, hey, this is the metaverse, it's literally this thing, this is what it looks like, these are the features that define the metaverse. I believe even if you ask Darius or me, like we have a different view of the metaverse because like everyone has a slightly different view of what it looks like.
And do you think it's a positive sentiment, a negative one, or something in between?
I think I would rather say that that's a good question. I'm not sure. I would lean to something in between, but at the same time, to me, it slightly feels like a negative one, since if we're all marketing and claiming it's something is the metaverse, but no one can actually unite around and see what it is, it's difficult to push something forward and make something come true if people cannot unite around the same vision of, hey, this is what we're working towards and this is what it will become.
Very interesting. Actually, point to the crowd. Put your hand up if you think the public perception of the metaverse is more leaning towards positive. Put your hand up if you think that. And put your hand up if you think it's more leaning towards negative. And then the rest of you are neutral, maybe. So it feels like 40% negative and maybe 60% neutral with no positives. Is that right? There we go, the little survey we did there. Darius, what are your views on this?
Well, I also agree that it's impossible to say what truly is metaverse. We're probably all of us are right at the same time because there is no one standard. I also agree that
it's like the Matrix, right? You know, nobody can tell you what the metaverse is. You have to experience it for yourself.
Yeah. So I agree that the majority of people think of it as a negative part. And as I've been a gaming YouTuber for a long time, I had the chance to see the development of social medias and gaming industry like very closely and to have a big audience. And I think that each new generation has their own vision for it, and that's the problem, because a lot of older people are making jokes about, you're playing Roblox or Fortnite, such a kid's game, but it's not kids games. It's just way different, and it's evolving into something that it's very hard to predict. It's new behaviors from new technologies, which produces new technologies, and it's hard to predict. So it's fun to watch that, yeah.
So your view is we still have a lot of progress to be made in that world, which may lead to a completely different place.
Yeah, it can get very bad or very good.
Perfect, thanks Darius. Serjan, what about you?
Living in the bubble from the tech perspective. So at Ready Player Me, we had a chance to work with many different companies from many different industries. That usually helps a lot understanding what kind of pain points different industries have and how they implement things. And it is such that so many people are not aware that they are partially using certain fundamental building blocks of metaverse already. And when I want to define things that are going to happen in the future, it's really difficult. Everybody, has a vague view of what things might be. What helps me most of the time is actually take a step back, think about today from the past perspective. If I asked people, what is internet? Some would tell me, I watch videos on the internet. Some would tell me, I can write messages to anybody I want. Someone would tell me, it's the infrastructure, you can send data and transfer it. It's all a huge thing, and we are using different functionalities of it. Metaverse is going to be the same. Due to, there was huge hype, some companies, some individuals wanted to capitalize it quick during the COVID times. A lot of mud splashed on it, and it got a bad name. But names are going to change. We are going to call it something different, but it is here to stay, and it is going to progress. It is the digitalization of the world, digital layer on top of what exists physically. It is partially happening. You can hear my voice amplified. I see that screen, how much time left. That is not really possible in the physical world as is, but we have this digital layer on top of that makes this possible. It's fused together. It is the amplification of this in many other cases. So that's pretty much what metaverse is in my view, and I totally understand why people might be having some resistance towards it. Misunderstanding causes that, misconceptions causes that, the bad things around that happened causes that, because every time a new technology arrives, it's Wild West. Everybody tries to use it in different ways, and this is how the laws and regulations are built. Bad things happen, we try to assess and understand the situation and regulate that. So slowly we will understand how we can use certain technologies, build certain walls around that, be it about education, about children, like the things we care more about. And once we figure things out, they are just going to set, become more clear, and technology will move forward.
I feel this is connected to the point I think Stephen was making about Roblox being a platform versus a single application or game, which makes a lot of sense. Narmin, what are your views on this?
I mean, as mentioned, basically, but I'll continue on with the conversation. So with every technology that comes, we go into this bubble, it goes into this hype, and everyone is like, metaverse this, metaverse that. Before the metaverse, we had blockchain. Everyone was like, Bitcoin, Bitcoin, I'm getting rich. Oh, I'm broke. Then you'd have NFTs. NFTs, it's a scam. Then you'd go into the metaverse, and now it's just not facing the same attention because we're in the AI bubble. So everyone now is just like AI. But the thing is, we get kind of sometimes stuck on defining the thing. Everyone is just jumping here. It's not metaverse, let's call it virtual worlds. It's not virtual world, let's call it whatever. It's not this, let's call it spatial computing. So branding kind of plays a big role in this. And the biggest reason actually people started having bad sentiments or like negative sentiments regarding the metaverse is because Meta itself named it. And Meta is not very famous for being like the most private and security kind of, like it doesn't give a shit about its users and data and everything. So that kind of, the way that companies play into this definition of what the metaverse is also is very important. And you cannot just take the metaverse out of context and like isolating it and saying, okay, so how do people perceive it? Because if we flip the question again and we ask the public again, like we ask the audience, what do you think the public sentiment of gaming and games is? Like, that's negative. Like, that's definitely negative. So now compare that to the metaverse. The metaverse looks like heaven compared to how people perceive gaming. And then again, it will continue to change as we move on. And it's just this hype of up and down. But yeah.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. In fact, I can support that with my personal anecdotal experience of dealing with client projects during the peak period of the metaverse, and you'd get a very short brief, this client's interested in implementing the metaverse, something like that. And so you get on a call, and within about 5 minutes, you realize, the client's talking about blockchain, or the client's talking about virtual reality, the client's talking about desktop-based virtual worlds. It could be anything. You don't know until you get on a call to identify exactly what they're talking about. So there was mass confusion, which I'm sure contributed to the pain.
Definitely.
So speaking about all those definitions and understanding the point that it's not really about what you call it, it's more how you use it.
Yes.
Do we think that virtual reality is a critical component of the metaverse, or is it an optional one? And what sort of level of importance would you place on XR technology, let's say, in the context of the metaverse? Anyone want to go first?
I mean, I can go first, but essentially, virtual reality specifically to, let's say, the metaverse, I would consider it an extension and maybe like the ideal goal to get to. I mean, I wish I could predict the future, but unfortunately I can't. So I can see it as being an important aspect, but it's the cherry on top of the cake, maybe. It's one piece of the puzzle. It isn't the whole thing. It won't all be VR. But I believe the interconnectedness of all of that is key here. So, for example, a great point here was you can't expect someone in Africa to have a VR headset and an internet connection all the time. Metaverse should be connecting everyone or having the ability to connect everyone a little bit. So you can't expect VR headsets and great internet connections and really expensive equipment from some parts of the world. When you could do that, let's say 10 years in the US, let's predict everyone has a headset. That won't cascade everywhere else. So it's a piece. Perhaps we will get there in 100 years. But I wouldn't say it's that critical now.
And then we have ethical issues around the accessibility of the technology, of course, and how the disparity that it creates between those who have and those who haven't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say I could say the same for mobile phones maybe 20 years ago. Yeah. Now everybody has, even deep corners of the world. So it's all about the adoption of it, and the more use cases it brings, more useful it becomes. It's going to become more companies are going to go into producing the hardware, making applications for it, and it's going to become a natural part of the life, just like we have this, black bricks in our pockets. So that's going to happen.
Yeah. I can add also that it's not about, when we look at virtual reality, it's kind of the easiest way to explain to someone who has nothing to do with this kind of field what the metaverse is. It's about explaining to them what immersion is. It's explaining to them how you interact with other people around the world. It's explaining to them like 3D graphics and virtual worlds. And so just one piece of explaining what it can actually be. But if you look at it from a better perspective, it's the convergence of real and virtual. And that is what it's going to be at some point. And how we get there is that we're starting with these virtual, completely immersive kind of things. But you see, like the last year or so, like the focus is more on mixed reality and how virtual content can actually understand physical space. And this is where Apple came in, like spatial computing. And we'll keep moving forward, but you see the projects are more about taking us back now from this virtual reality, from this fully isolated space, and they're pulling our heads, like, come back, sit in reality and be present. So this is where, like this, if you look at the Orion project from Meta, they're fully transparent glasses, they want you to be there. And then the augmented content or the virtual content is just a layer on top. As for and we need to be kind of careful with the digital divide, because this is gonna, like, having these kind of technologies, when you get to the point that it's actually accessible enough to everyone in the world, we need to be balancing kind of this aspect of how do you make it as accessible as possible across every kind of location for all kinds of people. Otherwise, you'd kind of risk a new way of digital divides, like not only computers, but like you have an entire life in a virtual world that someone else can never have access to. So it's not only about having a mobile phone that you can use this app and they cannot. It's about completely existing in a different environment that they cannot exist there. Like that's on a very big, deeper level of dealing with the world around you. So that's why it's quite risky, and we need to take that into consideration, like earlier on, accessibility. But yeah.
So perhaps it would be more psychologically damaging not to have access to that new world when others do have access to those experiences.
I believe so, yes. And like younger generations, like everyone has their own, like it's keep progressing how people deal with media, how they interact with each other. Everyone has their online persona. Like someone who is a shy kid, like always sitting in the corner eating his sandwich all alone, can be a complete asshole in the virtual world. He can be the most outspoken person, but it's the way that you exist in this virtual reality. So yeah, it's something that we should consider when we're creating such environments.
Yeah, thank you for the thoughts. Any questions so far? We got one there. Yeah, let's go over there with a microphone, please. Thank you.
Hello, thank you for the presentations. I am not from the industry. I'm from academia. I study semiotics. My PhD is about techno-living spaces, and I research smart homes, virtual reality. Really, with one of the papers I was looking at, what does it mean to be immersed? Being physically within the living room, but still being virtually somewhere else. So really, I wanted to ask kind of like a philosophical question to get your insight from like the industry perspective. Because in a way, y'all talked about identity, culture, actions in terms of agency, and just these, these things that we create meaning with. Especially when we're talking about younger generations, how do you kind of deal with the consumers not feel like their reality is a simulation? So knowing how to actually provide something that's meaningful, but still going back into like their physical existence, because like at the moment there's no core definition of what is metaverse. So when it comes to kind of understanding, okay, what are we engaging in as this platform? When we have all these different clothing items in this digital environment, but yet we only have like 4 things of clothes that we wear or whatever in the physical world, how do we actually learn when, in fact, like in Fortnite, how we say, oh yeah, that was a great concert that millions of people watched, but it was a pre-recorded event, 10 minutes long, that was completely programmed, but yet epistemically, there's a shift on what we understand as a concert. So how do we, from the industry perspective, kind of deal with this sort of getting into this simulacra?
Anyone want to give that a go? Yeah, Darius.
I could try to answer. Interesting question. Idea. I heard one interesting interview. I forgot, it's probably from Mark Zuckerberg. When our generation saw Matrix, we were like scared by it. But younger generation that doesn't care about that. It doesn't matter for them if they're living in simulation or not. But I still think that, for example, there was a great education person, Sirkin Robinson, and I like that he said that people are not just floating brains. We actually have bodies. And so while virtual worlds and metaverse and games enable like incredible things to learn and do, but it's neglecting the fact that we are still looking through a 2D monitor. So we are not born to do that. So I see for like this VR, XR capabilities to be a kind of new way into that digital world, but to incorporate our own body, because a lot of people have very high level of like physical intelligence. That's how we communicate, that's how express themselves, and it's really important for them to combine even getting industrial knowledge and other topics connecting through their body, it's a very way. So yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I can continue also, but there's definitely a shift in the way we make meaning of things, like meaning making in the real world and the virtual world. And that's not only between like reality and virtual reality, but also like between generations, like what those perceive as something that has some sort of cultural meaning or some sort of meaning, how they perceive the world in their times, like in the technology that they had back then, the one that we do, and the ones that the younger generations have. And some sort of translation between realities of those elements that we perceive and that we understand, interact with in that virtual should be done, and that there is research ongoing in Tampere University as how you translate things from virtual worlds into physical worlds and vice versa. So yeah, it's definitely something worth exploring, but also virtual worlds eventually, like they will not replace the physical world. And when we create content for some virtual world, I think balance is kind of the most important thing. Like as long as it's not a form of escapism from reality, you're good. And whenever we create content for a virtual world, we just need to make sure that it adds value to your life. It's not something you just do to run away from reality. You just do it because it makes you feel better. It makes you feel more connected. It makes you feel more engaged. So as long as it adds value, I mean, you're good to go.
I think escapism in moderation as well is something that we experience a lot, right? In terms of watching movies, in terms of maybe even you might even consider escapism in the physical world when we go to the countryside and places like that.
People used to read a lot of books, novels to escape the real life. We would now consider it like a good, let's say, habit to do it rather than using computers. But it's always used. By the way, really beautiful and meaningful question. And this is how we break this bubble in the tech people together they are in, getting some questions and feedback from outside. It's like the meanings of the words and how we perceive them always changes, and it's always been like that throughout the history. What is to us today as nostalgia that we want things to be for our kids and young generation as it was for us, it is going to be like them. It's going to be like that for them when they are like 25, 30, 40. So it's like the best thing we can do is make sure we put some guardrails and training wheels around that so it goes into the right direction. We don't want giga corporations to consume all the attention these people have, or we channelize this attention into the right places so they would benefit more. There's a saying water flows and finds its path. So with the technology, it's like that too. We try things, some paths fail, some work, and we keep using the working ones and build on top of that. So change is inevitable. It's going to happen. We will just change the meanings of the words around it all the time.
Yeah, I'd like to thank about the question as well. It was a very nice question. Something I try to remind myself sometimes is that I have an ape brain. We all came from apes, essentially. We are social creatures. In nowadays world, what you can see often happening is very young people especially have special terms like doom scrolling or brain rot, which is specifically tied to content consumption, such as on TikTok, where you just scroll and you stay in that bubble. It is escapism, but it is escapism which actually consumes the part of our brain, the dopamine addiction it creates by giving you that positive feedback over and over again. And I think that's a great point regarding the metaverse as well, is that it is important to use it in a way that is natural to humans, such as with social features through interactions between people, but not the same way as is just constant dopamine hits through a great thing that produces that is random numbers, so lotteries and so on. All of these things have become elements within our social media nowadays, and it is impacting young people as well.
How do you convince companies or to change their model or their thought process to go against the structure, the capitalist structure that we have accepted for many, many years? I mean, the longer people stay on the platform, the more money the company makes. Their incentives are tied to profits and money. Therefore, they want more people on that platform, whether it's healthy or not. Yeah. So how do you break that cycle? What is the solution?
I think it comes evolutionary in a way. Imagine everybody, completely lost their attention to mobile applications and there is no productivity. Even those companies will collapse. And this kind of things balances itself out, So I think the more, even, shaming people with doom scrolling, brain rot. Socially, we get to create this kind of things around that. And, I don't want brain rot. So the moment I hear about that, I better stop doing this. It's an organic thing too. Humans evolved in this way. Our brains are like that. Our social structure is like that. So we keep ourselves in checks and balances. And again, if things are to go completely wrong, that's going to tilt back to normal in some way.
So society will self-manage itself as things get bad. And
oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I would like to add that I would like to add to the part that yes, the younger generation acknowledges the fact that they have words doom scrolling and brain rotting because they know that they are suffering from it. There was a research about it, and I think this younger generation will, when they are in power of technologies, they will just fix it. I believe that. Because they are comparing even my parents and their environment and emotional intelligence and our generation, it's like day and night. So
And I think it's fair to say we have more research nowadays
Yeah.
which
That
will
too.
help us understand what is
Yeah.
happening to us
Yes.
versus in the
Yeah.
past where perhaps there was a stigma against saying we have any sort of mental problems, everything's fine, we'll put a bandage over it and forget it ever happened. You know, at least it's being talked about nowadays, which will allow us to create that balance and that self-moderation.
Yeah. I mean, even like when talking about the younger generation, let's look at the older generation. You know, like they could get scammed or believe AI generated content so easy.
Yeah.
Younger generation can see this kind of things like a flick of a moment. They would say this is not real or this is just fake, but old people believe that.
Yeah.
So it's like everybody has their faults because they didn't have this kind of technology or exposure to it. They do not know it's completely normal. And it's on stages, like every generation will have like good things and bad things, and it will move forward.
So let's talk about the good things then in the last 10 minutes that we have. The metaverse, thinking about it from the perspective of the consumer market and the business market, what are the actual benefits of the metaverse? So why engage with the metaverse? Why should users, people, be in the metaverse? Why should businesses be in the metaverse?
Okay. So as for businesses, it's definitely a wider reach, especially small businesses. Taking, for example, digital fashion. As a small, like we have a startup in our Helsinki XR Center. It's just a digital fashion kind of company. And what they do is that they can create these designs, provide them on multiple platforms that can be used by like the global reach of people. And that kind of enhances, like when they tap into that kind of ecosystem and that kind of business, it just helps them provide content for a much larger kind of audience than they would normally do in real life. That's one thing. Connectivity and the communities and the social aspect that you find in the metaverse themselves. So for consumers themselves to exist in certain places and go and shopping for say from these businesses, it becomes an interactive and more engaging experience. And also businesses that cannot open a physical space, they don't have the resources, they can have a virtual one. And that virtual one can also have some sort of production here and there. And another aspect is sustainability. So, for example, like big fashion companies, let's say, they can have an entire fashion campaign, produce the stuff digitally, and see how people react to those before they actually go into production, and then none of it gets sold. So they can actually create a marketing campaign, target it to a certain platform, see how people react to that, and then produce the product physically in terms of fashion, let's say. So it has lots of kind of values in that way.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. In Roblox, like my own backstory was like when I started out like playing Roblox, I eventually started making games, and my parents would come up to me and say like, "Hey, why are you playing this dumb-looking game? Why aren't you playing Grand Theft Auto or something?" Eventually, I got my first check from Roblox, and then the attitude completely changed. It was like, "Hey, can't you do more of this?"
So you were sucked in by the very capitalist system we were complaining about.
At that time, I didn't make any money, and like it was just a fun project for me. Eventually, it just became this. But related to accessories, absolutely, like on Roblox, for example, there's very few, if any, clothing brands which don't have virtual accessories in Roblox. So Roblox creators and popular 3D creators or 3D artists, they are the UGC artists, they have actually implemented whole sets and collections of gear from Nike and Adidas and so on have all been implemented into Roblox because it's a way to, instead of selling a physical shoe, you will sell a virtual shoe and you will still create that connection and reliability and trust between a brand and a client.
Yeah, so similar to the point you were making, no, I mean, it's brand reach, it's connection from a company's connection to its buyers, current and future, I suppose.
Yep.
The sustainability aspects. And from a user perspective, it sounds like you're saying there's a sense of empowerment in being able to take charge of, effectively create your own gig economy, so to speak. You know, you're creating your own job role, your own value in a virtual world that delivers economic benefits to you wherever you are in the world, and whenever you want.
Yeah, entry barrier gets low, and easier to get into business out there. And yeah, I mean, the physical barriers in general just completely disappear. So brick and mortar style working completely shifts, and whatever you can represent digitally would be easy to distribute everywhere. And once you get the validation of your thesis in any economy or sale related context, you can make decisions faster and do that. Improves communication as well. You know, I would say most of the communication we have digitally right now is a part of metaverse, and how easy and fast it makes things is incredible. Mobile internet completely shift how we deal with everything real life. So we already have the fallout of effects of metaverse, but again, we are not naming it that way. But it is there, like with us, and it makes life very easy in general.
Yeah, we also had a platform at PwC that we used, a metaverse platform. We still have it to engage with potential applicants to the company, so graduates who want to join the company. In addition to us going to campuses and advertising to students, we would use this online virtual world to allow anyone in the UK to engage with us. And that obviously has scale advantages. You know, we can't physically go to all the universities in the UK. But I spoke in those platforms and I engaged with the students and I said, do you like this? Why do you like it, if so? And I got an interesting answer that we haven't talked about yet, that is relating to the sense of psychological safety in a virtual world when you are represented by an avatar of your perfect making. So your ideal avatar, your ideal representation that is 100% controlled by you at all times, that is you are delegating your appearance and your communication to, without having to worry about being on a video call where you are perhaps you feel like you're being constantly scrutinized, your background's being constantly scrutinized. So there was that sense of psychological safety.
Definitely. Especially working with avatars, like we get to hear that a lot, like integrating things into video conferences and all. You can just lay on the bed, you know, like with very messy hair, and just talk through your avatars, and that just enables that.
Yeah, I would say it's a street that goes both ways. In Roblox, if you look at, you can open any YouTube video on Roblox, which is from Roblox, and you will see comment sections full of people absolutely mad that their account has been banned for swearing. Because people get so tied that repercussions to the actual virtual avatar feel like repercussions to themselves, because because you get so connected to that. There is, of course, the second scenario is that you make a new account, which they are trying to work against. But if you break the rules in a virtual environment, the impact it actually has on the player is so severe that they will look out any social media of Roblox and say, this is terrible, my account is banned, please give me my account back, and they will scream, yell, make YouTube videos on how much they want their account back.
Yeah. And you mentioned that this anonymity, it has a certain positive aspect, but it also has a very negative one. Like, it allows for very questionable behaviors to occur in the virtual world. And that kind of needs to be monitored, and that's why the banning is quite good, because Roblox has lots of predators, like lots of old people just go on Roblox just to talk. It's the perfect platform, the heaven of children. Yeah. So that's where you find the old creeps. And as good as it is, this being anonymous and kind of hiding your identity, we need to kind of make it always clear that even virtual actions have real consequences and real impact.
Yeah, so maybe there's some sort of middle ground where it's not necessarily your identity is perhaps checked behind the scenes and you're given verification, but you're allowed a non-realistic digital representation, which makes you feel psychologically safe.
Yes.
An interesting thing on Roblox is that if you want to use voice chat, you need to be ID verified. You need to present your actual ID and show that, hey, I'm this person and I have this bank account and this is really me. And then you
have... Things are already moving in that direction.
It's already moving in that direction to actually provide more safety in that sense. One of our game designers at our company is constantly mad at Roblox because he cannot speak to his daughter on Roblox. because you say, hey, how was school, love, or dear, and then it just gets blanked out. And they're speaking in Italian, and it catches all of that, and blocks all of that away, and like our game designer got banned for that, for trying to speak to his own daughter.
I mean, he can speak to her at home, you know?
Yeah.
That's true if there is a connection there. So we have exactly 90 seconds to go. Is there any burning question in the crowd? This is your last chance. Not totally. Oh, here we go. Yeah. Last question.
I think that people forget that even if we're talking about digital spaces, they still take like physical resources, and it's not sustainable for the environment. And what are your thoughts on that? Because the metaverse, like there has been some articles about that it will take a lot of resources.
Do you mean energy?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I believe that metaverse will solve education problem, and if we solve education problem, we will have way more scientists and engineers, which will solve the energy problem. So short.
Yeah, I would say like a virtual call would, take less resources than jumping on a plane, going to other side of the world. During COVID, this was a big thing, like how much flights actually, number of flights reduced. Big companies usually want you to come to, their feet, you have a call, handshake, and that norm kind of removed from the equation. Remote work became like a norm, and it goes on. So you do not need a building, you do not need an office, you can actually maintain things from home through a screen, and this actually helps reduce use of resources too.
And I think the largest perpetrator of those news articles that you've read is probably related to the blockchain or Web3 aspect of the metaverse, which is where that criticism is coming from.
And AI as well is a big part.
Training, training takes all time.
The positive is Microsoft and Google now both are purchasing nuclear reactors to power everything. So if the AI bubble bursts, we will have many nuclear reactors to help.
Hands up if you think that nuclear reactors are the key to the metaverse's success.
Energy
maybe.
Clean energy.
But it's been a fascinating discussion. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
A round of applause, please, for our wonderful panelists.